Okay, this is the March 8th, 2024 Planning and Development Project Review Committee meeting. And I'm Mitch Glass, Chair of the Board. Let's do other introductions. Andy,
I'm Andy Rollman, board member.
Emily,
Emily Petrina, member of the board.
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth Godden, member of the board and vice chair.
Nikki,
Hi, Nikki Sarah, environmental and landscape planner and staff to the board.
and Sam.
Sam Quinn Jacobs, planner and staff to the board.
All right, great. We have two projects to look at as part of Project Review Committee. The first one is 601 East State Street. The applicant is Mike Barnowski of Trade Design Build, and the actions this coming month are a public hearing and a seeker determination for their 3-story, 6-unit multifamily residential building. So if they're in the room, why don't you let them in and we'll.
Hey.
Things are going. Hi.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. So is there anything else to follow up from the board meeting a couple weeks ago, or anything to look ahead to for this month?
For 601 State.
For 601 East State.
Yeah. One update that we made was we just shifted the building to the west to accommodate and more ample space for parking.
Okay. How far did you shift the building? That sounds like not a small change.
Yeah, we shifted it 4 feet. Originally we had it so close to the road because we were trying to accommodate a hypothetical rear yard per zoning code if the rear yard were that west property line. That wasn't necessary. That was sort of a tactic that we were using in order to, sweeten the variance request. But our engineer just said that it wasn't really working out. We're still within the actual side yard setback that on the west side. So they've sent in the appropriate, or we sent the sort of appropriate civil plans showing this change. It's 4 feet. I don't know how you.
Cameron, do you have that now to share?
You want me to share that screen, Cam?
That'd be great.
Yeah, I can share that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and while I'm bringing this up, the primary need to do that was Mitch and company is that the ADA parking along Ferris. The slope of Ferris is to the point where we have to keep the ADA cross slope and side slope of the accessible route to and from the parking in mind. And just simply because the slope of the Ferris Place sidewalk is so steep, we had to create room to transition the driveway grade off of the Ferris Place sidewalk into the ADA parking, and then be able to have, an ADA compliant accessible route from the parking up into the front of the building. So largely the building hasn't substantially changed, I think, in plan from what you folks have previously seen. We have the parking here off of, I assume you guys can see my screen. We have the parking off of Ferris, which is in the same spot, and the building is just situated so that the building is pretty close to the parking. And again, we can get that accessible route from the parking into the building. We still have room for the rear access walk and the trash totes and the bike rack on the back. But that's largely the magnitude of the change.
And I guess maybe it's somewhat important to note that that facade of the building that's shown in the footprint, that's actually the front of the porch. So there's a 6 to 8 feet to the actual building facade where that first jog is.
Does that answer your question, Mitch?
I think so. I'd like to hear from other folks. I mean, I have a question or two about it. But is there anything else? Or is that the one thing that's changed and everything else stays the same?
I think
We
it's the
added
one
some,
thing.
yeah, we
go
added some
ahead.
post-top lighting out along the walk from the front of the building out to the little courtyard, the pocket park. Just some decorative residential style post-top, you know, type of driveway lights just to light up that area a little bit. Nothing substantial, but those are
Okay.
really the only substantive site changes we have.
All right, let's just go around quickly and just see any thoughts or comments. Emily?
Sure. I think it's a reasonable change. We're always going to side towards accessibility, and your explanation makes perfect sense. I think for the planning board meeting, it would be great to see it on one sheet, what we had seen before, plus this new change, just so everyone gets it really quickly, 4 feet to the west done. I think that will, speed things up for your argument. Um, and then I guess the only question is, did you have to get variances? Does this change the variance process for I guess it's the rear yard?
Yeah, no, because we're still out of the yard, like we're not in impacting the yard on that west lot line. Our variance didn't change at all. Our
Okay,
application didn't change. So
okay, great. Um, and if it's possible, I know renderings are expensive, but if it's possible to also see sort of like either an elevation
yeah.
or a rendering of the change, I think
Mhm.
that will make everyone comfortable that it's not substantially different. So I think those two documents would be really helpful, but
Yep.
I think it's reasonable. Thanks.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think that does sound clear. Two questions I had. One was there was a note in your latest correspondence about additional parking would be, sort of figured out at some point. You're not, just for my own clarification, you're not providing all of the required parking on site. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And so do you know where the additional parking would happen?
I think we're still trying to coordinate with the owner on that. Adam, have you talked with Charlie about that yet?
Yeah, that's been we can provide clarification because Charlie and Modern Living Rentals, they have a series of different rental properties around the city, as you folks know. And early on in this project, they had identified a parcel that had access available parking. And, I think that was already outlined in the project documentation submitted, but we can certainly clarify where that location is for the planning board meeting,
Okay,
especially
thank
for your benefit, Andy, because you weren't here early on. So,
right. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And
sure.
then the other note that still seems to be in question is the sidewalk, whether, the replacement of the sidewalk along Ferris will be part of this project or not.
We currently do have that proposed to be removed and replaced.
You do now. Okay.
Yes,
So that will be part of the project.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Elizabeth?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I'm looking at the Google Street View right now, and it's a pretty bad situation, just this gravel pad. There's garbage strewn around. Maybe that was just the day the Street View happened. But to add on to what Emily asked for, which was like, here's the original design and here's the 4-foot pushback. Can you do a before condition? Like even at the very, like what's the existing condition with that pad? Where's the building going? Where's the new parking going? Where's the sidewalk going? So I really want to see that progression because I'm kind of really confused about why you needed to do what you did, how much space there is. It's unfortunate that parking is going like right there at the front. Usually housing is better when it's like on towards the sidewalk and parking is on the side or in the back. But I guess if that parking is to code, is it to zoning, the parking is okay to do that along the sidewalk like that? I mean, it's already there.
Yeah, I think that was the running logic is that it's an
Yeah.
existing condition.
Right. So let's show that existing condition and how this makes it better, and cleans it up, makes it nicer. And also, where's garbage going? Because I'm concerned about that because if you look at Google Street View of Ferris Place, there's a bad thing going on there next door to this new building. And I don't know if that's that house's problem, but also it raises the question of what are you all doing for this building and how is trash handled? So if you could bring those, that'd be good.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, and then there's going to be a public hearing. And have you gotten any feedback from neighbors on this? Is there anything we should know about that? Any heads up or nothing?
I
We have
haven't
not
received
rec-
any.
Yeah, and we have not either. When they thought it was going to be last month, there were a few people who called into the office, so there might be. And the applicants will receive those public comments as
Do
well.
we know what the issues are? We're not aware yet. We have no.
No,
set.
but any
Okay.
comments we get, we'll forward to you. And the other thing I wanted to say, Sam brought this up, if you change anything, you actually do have to show the new drawings to BZA.
Yeah, even if it's not closer to the rear yard, we'll need to see
Yeah.
the new site plan.
With
Yeah, okay.
measurements, just to make certain.
Okay, yeah.
So what I'm saying, Cameron, just to reiterate, is like existing condition, the first plan, and then the updated plan, all at the same scale. You know what I mean? So like we can see the progression, and it's not jumping around in scales or kinds of
Yep.
drawings, but it's like
Yeah,
very clear.
easy to follow,
Yeah,
clear,
thank you. Yes. That's
totally.
And to Emily's point, we'll have the original site plan overlaid on top of this current one so that you folks can see that progression as well.
Yeah. And a rendering if possible, just scooch it back to see what it looks like. Okay. I think that's good for now. Is that it? Nikki or Sam, is there anything else we need to review?
I don't think so. I think
Everything else is
yep, pretty
buttoned
buttoned up. The FEEP's pretty buttoned up, so that'll come too in the
Okay.
mailing.
Great.
And yeah, and hopefully things will go smoothly and you'll have a secret determination, but let's look at the updated info.
All right,
Okay. We'll see you then.
right.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you. Okay, next up is 261 Lake Street, DMG Investments. This month's action is a potential seeker determination and a potential deeming of the potential deem rec. We're not doing that though, right? Because isn't that coming after seeker?
It can come right after seeker.
Oh, like
So potential, if you, yep.
But the updated schedule. Ah, I see. Okay. Yep. Got it. Same day. Okay. So the applicants look like they're in the room. One thing we asked for is for the environmental consultant to show up at this board meeting and also to make a brief presentation about their findings, about how this project is responding to those findings, to allay some serious neighborhood concerns that have been ongoing. We have been taking a hard look at this project since 2022, and we just want one final clear explanation for everybody to see and to be recorded for the record about the environmental conditions of this piece of land and how the project is going to be safe and appropriate. So hopefully you might have a kind of a version of that, but that's just to get that out front and center for the board meeting in March.
Yep, so for today's meeting, we don't have the environmental engineer appear, but they will prepare a presentation at the planning board. And we don't anticipate to show any of the drawing updates because there is no really updates for that. We would like to address our public comments and the landscape compliant method at this meeting, and planning board, and to get our secret determination. Let me share my screen. So we submitted some memos regarding those two points, and this memo was submitted before, but we did revise it a little bit to accommodate additional comments that we got from the public. For the river, recreational river permit and East Lincoln Street, we want to restate that this is a public city street. We're using it to access our property, but as all the other property owners in the city, they're all using public city street to exit their property. So we're not really creating any different conditions as anyone else is doing. But we are improving the existing public street to be fire code compliant, and also provide the opportunity for any of the fire truck or EMT to get up to the gravel lot up there. Currently there is too steep and it's not, fire code compliance. And we also want to suggest that the access is required by fire department, and again, we are using it for access, but also a fire lane. And for the recreational river permit boundary, I know some public members were questioning that, but we also want to say that we have confirmed with the city that we're using the parcel line as the boundary line, and our professional surveyor did use the parcel line as our, survey boundary line. So there should be no questions for that. Some additional comments regarding Ithaca Falls natural area. Again, in some of the photos we submitted in January, where we have some existing conditions, like this is taken from the trailhead to Ithaca Falls. There will be no visual impact from this area at all. You may see it on the street level, but it's just a regular townhomes, and it should not affect the overall natural view for this area. And looking from East Lincoln Street down to Ithaca Falls, even though there's no leaf during the winter time, you cannot see any of the Ithaca Falls. So we do not believe there will be any visual impact for Ithaca Falls area. We do understand that people take their guests or visitors to park at this parking lot, but they eventually will take people down to Ithaca Falls and not staying around for our property. And for the environmental concerns, again, we don't have our environmental engineer today, but they will prepare a presentation to reiterate what we have found so far. There were multiple different reports that were prepared by different consultants, like Barton LaJuice, who were the one oversaw some of the city of Ithaca environmental mitigation. And it was like they were doing all over city of Ithaca, and in their statement, they did not find anything that indicate our site is contaminated or have any contamination. And partners who prepare the phase 1, phase 2 environmental assessment will be present some of those findings. And we also prepared the soil management plan to kind of as a way to mitigate if there's any potential or unexpected contamination found during the construction. Traffic concerns, we submitted the traffic impact study letter a couple months ago. Again, in that letter, our traffic engineer said that the proposed project is expected to generate approximate 8 total vehicle trips during the weekday AM peaks and 9 total vehicle trips during the weekday PM peak hours. And those numbers will be expected to be lower because this is a very walkable neighborhood, and we do not anticipate any additional trips will be generated to make the existing condition worse. For the parking concerns, that we are providing 16 parking on site, so 1 for each unit, and 16 additional on the upper level in the Alden parking lot. We did get the variance approval from BCA earlier this month, and so we're able to use those 16 for our parking for our residents. And again, we're not providing any additional parking for the East Lincoln Street or anything else, and we're not changing the condition for the existing gravel lot. For the stormwater runoff issue, we have submitted our SWIP to the city, and the city is currently reviewing them. Other concerns that were brought up, if there's going to be any additional site lighting, there will be not any set lighting on Lake Street, so there will be no any additional cost incurred by the city. Potential noise from HVAC system. This will be any typical, just like any typical townhomes. We're not creating any bigger development that will create noisy sound to the neighborhood. So we wanted to also briefly look at this memo prepared for the landscape compliant method. We did list out each individual condition in the code to respond to each one of them. The first one being the natural landform and tall vegetation providing significant shield of views our proposed condition indicate that there will be 33 feet drop from the Alden parking to the top of a retaining wall. So there is some significant height difference between that. And we're also anticipating to have existing trees and additional trees as planting buffer to be between our parking to the adjacent lot. And the configuration of parking area protects and preserve existing healthy mature vegetation. Yes, we are preserving some of them on the upper level of the parcel, but we do need to remove some of the invasive species and the ones that kind of affects by the retaining wall. But we will put in additional trees that will be similar in height when they're mature. And then we are not going to provide a curbed landscape planting area within the parking lot just because we're only providing 16, but we do anticipate to have landscape area around the parking lot. And for the parking area, it will be shaded by existing and proposed mature tree. And I think that answers all of the conditions that was indicated in the landscape compliant method. Again, this is the line where we're saying our parking will be within the rear yard setback area. And we will also present some additional architectural updates for this project. Just wanted to give you some heads up on that meeting. And we don't anticipate any site change for this meeting.
Okay. Well, there's quite a bit there, but seems like these are some of the things we've heard before, except for the architectural changes, which we'll take a look at. But why don't we just go around the room, see if there's any initial reactions to what we've just heard. Emily?
Yeah, thank you, Ife. I read this whole thing too, and I think this is great. I watched the meeting even though I wasn't there last time, and I heard all the public comments, and I really think this lays out your argument and responds to all those comments really well. I remember that you have a website. Is that right? Just with all the environmental findings. I think you put it up in one or two meetings. I searched Google for it and I couldn't find it, so it might be worth putting that up again. Just, when you start your presentation, so that now that the public seems more interested, maybe a new set of people will be able to find the website with your information. I don't know if this is the plan for your environmental consultants presentation, but I went back through the materials and I found the memo from, it was dated March 14th, 2022. And it sort of listed all the surrounding areas and their level of contamination, and then 45 soil samples, 5 borings, like the 3 different tests that were, or dates of all those samples that were collected. That was powerful for me to find that again and be remembered about it. So hopefully your consultant will talk about those 55 samples that were taken as well. I don't have any questions or need for additional information. I think what you presented today really sort of rounds it out for me. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Andy? You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Thanks,
Okay.
Ife. I think I agree with Emily that these clarifications are really helpful. Just a couple of things I was thinking about in terms of the lighting safety. This piece of Lake Street at night really feels unsafe, and I think the addition of the townhouses and development here will actually make the neighborhood safer. So, I'd be a proponent for any additional lighting, and I know you're going to address the lighting in a way that's not going to create, light pollution or light the sky. So, I would encourage any lighting that makes this feel more safe at night, and maybe something that you might want to, highlight that, that lighting will be an improvement to the neighborhood. In terms of access to the parking, in the Auden parking lot, could you point out the fact that as part of this project, you are improving the sidewalk on the Auden property so that there is a safe path from, the townhouses to the parking? Right now, that sidewalk doesn't exist in front of the Auden parking lot. There's some trees there. So that little, piece that would be next to the 16 parking spaces, that little leg of sidewalk. Just reiterating that you're installing that and you're going to have this, safe and, easy path from the parking to the townhomes. If, just thinking about, there's been a lot of discussion with the neighbors of, the existing parking lot for the city parking lot for the falls. And, could there be some mention that, as the project is developed and if there are thought to be major parking impacts to access the falls for, the public, that could be dealt with, that there would be, avenues for the city to address those in the future, that you're not creating something that's sort of this is it, and if it's a problem, too bad, that those things could be addressed by the city in the future. And then lastly, I think that in terms of the public talking about the variances of the project, and one of them is the parking, I think you could absolutely say that the spirit of, this landscape variance method is really, to have landscape used when, you're not able to meet the setback requirement. And yes, this is such a unique site, and, with the slope and the additional plantings that you're adding, clearly there's nothing sort of in the way between the parking and the adjacent parcel, so it shouldn't be a concern at all. So those would be my comments.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Ife. I think what you've mentioned in your presentation is that you have a comprehensive response to the questions that came up. I walk the site again this week, and I'm just really glad that you're able to, move forward with this project. I know we've had several iterations of it in the past, and I'm just really impressed that you're able to fit something in there. It seems like not a lot of room, and I think it will be an improvement to the neighborhood as far as tying in sidewalks, and I hope that your final presentation in the next couple of weeks will convince everybody else of that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear what you're bringing, although it'll be interesting to see what your environmental consultant has in terms of an overview. I think what Emily pointed out was excellent. That is absolutely appropriate and a really great point. I think what Andy said about the sidewalk connection is very good, and also about the parking, the city parking. And that might be something where you propose a sign that's very clear. This is city parking only. This is not for use by 261 Lake Street residents. Anybody who's found parking here will be fined, right? Like, just make it obvious that you are not proposing that city parking to be used by your residents. I mean, that's the concern. So I think that would help. I would also like to know if we received, there were some really interesting comments at the last board meeting about environmental concerns. I hope we've received the written versions of those comments so they can be forwarded to you. Have those written comments been received, Nikki?
They have not.
Oh, okay. Well, then we will do our best to keep in mind those comments from the February board meeting and respond to those as best you can in light of the fact there are no written versions of those comments. What else? Is there anything else we need to be doing, Nikki? Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to add, if I could, if they do the landscape compliance, there will be no variances for this project. I just want to put that out there because I know it's been said that there are several, there will be 0 variances. The other thing is the BZA did mention, and they'll send their papers to us, but they did mention, they put a condition. They would like the planning board to ask the one to actually designate the parking spots, like these 16 are for the Lake Street townhomes. So that's just, they're asking you, you know, if the planning board would do that. So that's just something that's in your court if you feel that that's appropriate as well. And then the other thing about the city parking lot, that's a great idea, but that's the city. So we would have to put the signs up, but maybe that's something that, you know, you could say we'd work with the city to have them, you know, appropriately sign the parking lot.
Yeah.
So, and thank you for the presentation.
Great.
Thank-
Just wanted to add additional things that we haven't really assigned any parking, but our intention is to, you know, use the closest parking spot, you know, possible to provide the access, and this sidewalk is expected to be constructed for our access. And we will work with the city to, whether it's gonna be a sign or not, it should not be our, like, the developer cannot put signs on city properties, and city, we will work with you on that. One other thing we wanna confirm with you is that we mentioned this sidewalk in the last meeting. We wanna confirm whether you feel comfortable for us to remove it or not. You know, because it's a city street and really this sidewalk doesn't really lead to anything. Or anticipate route for the pedestrian will be like coming here and cross to get on other sidewalks. So would it be okay for us to remove this sidewalk, or is there any concerns for that?
Seems
I
like a
think we
question
need
for
to
the
review
city
that.
And
Yeah.
streets and whatever. Take a look at that.
We'll send that for sure, Ife, to internally.
Okay.
That's a staff level decision. I mean, the only reason why I bring up the sign is because you're building the road, you're building a new road for the city, correct? You're paying for that and doing the construction of that
Yes, we're improving
extension. So I just, if there's, and you're also putting in landscape in the city right away, right? Those
Yep.
trees, all that planting is in city right away. So I guess that's why I'm just saying, you know, the addition of a sign could be part of it, but how you figure that out with the city, I just recommend that you work together to make that happen and be clear that you want to do that because you're proving that this is not for this is not for your townhome residents. That's just trying to make that clear. Good. Okay. Well, I think things are clear in terms of a way forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I don't have anything else. I think there was a question about the crosswalk on Lake Street and the fact that there was not a stop sign at the intersection of Lake and Lincoln. That is a yield sign as you come from the west up Lincoln and taking a right onto Lake. That's a yield, not a stop. So if there's a crosswalk there, has your traffic engineer or anybody else looked at safety issues related to a yield sign with a crosswalk in the same location?
I don't believe so. Whether it's a yield or stop, I guess we will work with the city to determine which one is more appropriate.
It's a yield sign now, so maybe that's another thing you can review with staff in addition to
Yeah,
the sidewalk.
sure. And engineering does receive it and has not said anything, but I will point
Yeah,
their,
let's touch
yeah,
base with
point their
them.
focus on that for sure.
Yeah.
And we will provide a draft presentation for the submission. Of course, we're not just gonna present it at the meeting. You will be able to see it ahead of time. And for the architectural updates, we don't anticipate any significant change. It will be just some color selections for our buildings.
Okay.
And for the lighting, let me just clarify for a second. So we are providing exterior building lighting, and there is existing city lighting on the street, which I think will be sufficient, but Nikki, should we also work with the city to evaluate that, or whether
Yes, yep, I think so. And I think engineering also would be, so they have a list. I have a list for them. I will definitely send.
Okay. All
All right.
Thank you so much.
I think we're good. Okay, we'll see you in a few weeks and we will move forward from that meeting.
Great, thank you.
See you then. Agenda review. Is there anything
Okay.
that's changed on the agenda?
Yes, in fact, there is. Always. You guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, and please jump in anytime. Usual suspects at the beginning, agenda review, we'll have the February minutes to review. And then public comments and your response to the comments. This is new. It was not at PRC, but the Ithaca Farmers Market is going to come back. They have a few changes that they'd like to do for that phase 1 parking lot. And it was enough to bump up to you all, because I know we've had the conversation about the parking spots, so felt like we'd bring it to you instead of staff review. And we will, of course, they'll have all the drawings to us in time to send out. Then Lake Street Townhomes, and this is potential, and I'll add the recreational river as well.
Potential, yeah.
Yep. And then 601. We have a public hearing and secret determination. And then Water's Edge will be coming back, and they're going to focus on transportation. So
Okay.
with, the bigger projects, we often take section by section.
Yeah.
So this is what we'll focus on for this meeting. And then we have a new project coming. And for Andy's sake, you probably noticed, but we don't have new projects come to PRC in the first month because they're just introducing the project. So that's why we didn't see them today. But they will be here at the board meeting to present their building. And then as well, some variances. 601 East State, and yeah, we can review those. And then if there's any, I do not have any right now, but if there's any old new business and reports, we can put those in there too.
All right. I think this
Okay.
all looks,
Ricky, for that Cornell Hillel project, I
Yes,
assume I need to recuse myself, although this is from real estate.
I believe so. That's what we've always done.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just not coming from my department, but it is, a Cornell project.
We can ask about that too, Elizabeth. It might be that you just have to disclose. So I'll ask about that. Since it's a little different than the other ones.
It is, it's coming from real estate.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out, and I'll ask.
So I have just a general question since I'm new, and this will be my first new project. What I've noticed from the packet is that there's kind of the minimal amount of information about the building. And it seems like the first thing we do is we dive into the environmental piece. But without answering a lot of the questions about really the design of the building, is it appropriate to start, in these initial meetings asking, questions? Or, because again, when I was on the other side, at Cornell, it seemed like you kind of feed the minimal amount of information just to keep things going, but without really, there's such general comments made in this description that without really understanding, like, for instance, one of the big things is the height of the building. And there's a statement in there that, we want big, tall ceilings and structure is 3 feet. So we're adding 3 feet. Well, that's really general. You can't assume that you need 3 feet throughout an entire structure to get a high ceiling. Ceilings can work within structures and that kind of thing. So again, is it appropriate to start asking questions like this? Another thing that I've noticed is to meet the setbacks, the project is taking a piece of a parcel next door, and there's sort of a line drawn. And if you look at the the submission, it's showing, well, our parcel is this size, but then there's this secondary property line that kind of looks like, well, it didn't fit, so we're taking, you know, a piece of this other Cornell property. And then the obvious question is, well, why not take more? You know, if that would solve, you know, the fact that the footprint of the building and the size of the building is too big for the site. So again, hate to get into the weeds, but when is it appropriate to start asking these types of questions for more information and clarity?
Nikki,
Would
do
you like me to answer that?
or do you want
Sure,
you want
yeah.
me to try? I mean, I
It
can
doesn't
also-
matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, and please chime in if you know, if I miss anything. Andy, I was gonna say, so we go by action, right? So you do see seeker first, but that entire time we're also doing site plan review. So they're happening simultaneously, but you know, seeker is the first action that gets done, determining a seeker. So it's appropriate to ask that as we go along. Absolutely, I would say.
Okay.
Some of those questions also might be answered with zoning, some of your questions, because zoning will be looking at building height, et cetera, and they'll give us that back too as well, the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, it's happening at the same time. The site plan review happens the entire time. And I would say applications are completely different. Some are fully baked when they get to us and we have all the drawings. Some are not. So, you know, you could, based on what we receive and what you need to see, for sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah, those are excellent questions already. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, what has been the process that has led up to what we have already seen, which is not much. Like, show us in drawings the decisions you made and why you made those decisions in diagram form. I totally agree with you. Like the height issue and says it relates to nearby buildings. I'd love to see an elevation of the street and how the building fits in. If that's what you're telling me, we haven't seen that. So this meeting will be our opportunity to really ask for those detailed things. Anything that we want to see that will help us understand the scale, the massing, the proportion, the height, that 3 foot, that's when we do it. It's unfortunate that we can't do it in PRC, but like, as Nikki said, we don't see those original projects in PRC first. We get a first crack at them. And there was no sketch plan for this. Like, we could have asked for it in a sketch plan review, but we didn't have that either. So
Yeah.
we start where we start, and we'll move the seeker along with the site plan at the same time, like Nikki said, and ask for those really important documents and drawings to help us understand.
Yeah, and seeing, you know, the building in context, you know, what's the access to the parking in the back, you know, there's description about, you know, how to access that parking, but to really see a much larger site plan, you know, at a smaller scale to see the adjacent buildings. I think that would be really helpful. Yeah.
Those are all excellent. Make your list, and I'm
Yeah,
gonna cut you first.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say,
Are
Andy,
you
it's
ready to do
beneficial
it?
to you all and to the applicant to have those questions, you know, as soon as they come to mind.
Yeah,
Because, and it's okay if 3 months from now you come up with something that you hadn't thought about.
Right.
So it's,
yeah.
yep, the more you can lay it out, the better too.
Right, yeah, because, you know, talking about the seeker, you know, there's a comment about how much soil is being removed, but then if you look at the site and the fact that it's sort of, you know, placing the building at the midpoint of the slope, well, you know, how do you get all that fill? How do you get these berms that are happening? It's not just a matter of shifting the soil around. It seems to me that you know, soil would need to be added to the site to create this platform and these berms and then, you know, for me, the other thing would be, you know, like what's the environmental story? You know, I hear on projects, everybody says, well, you know, of course it's green because we're meeting the Ithaca Green Building Code, so we're done. But, you know, LEED Silver is kind of the minimal, you know, I mean, that's one step from certified that, you know, so what are there larger sustainability goals than just let's meet the minimum?
Okay.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
also,
I will make a list, but you know, I'm relying on you guys. I don't want to be negative, you know, but just the questions are there. So again, how do you how do you guys, and I'll, over time figure out how to finesse it like, all you guys are doing so well.
No, you're doing well too. And I do want to mention, we're still at the PRC recording. So we can also talk about this as well before planning boards, et cetera, too.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. No. It's important to have these questions as well, and anyone can hear them too.
Yeah.
So
And you're right
appreciate
on the
it.
right track.
You are.
This is exactly what we're asked to do.
And having a list is perfect. That's going to be fantastic. So thank you.
I think just for my feedback on your question, Andy, I think it's always good to tell them what we want to see at these first design review meetings, and we can help guide what we see next time and what materials they bring, whether, proposing sort of rhetorical questions that they can't answer the first day, but will give them a to-do list kind of,
Right.
is how I try to maybe give feedback in that first
that's
design
great.
review. I have a quick just like housekeeping thing, Nikki. I went into the 601 East State Street folder, and there's a 200 Highland Ave document in the same folder. It's the same trade design build, but I just wanted to let you know in case it was in the wrong spot. Yeah.
Yep, that is in the wrong spot.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
I didn't read it. I opened it and it took me like 5 minutes, like, wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah, we'll get that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I guess if there's nothing else, we can call it a meeting. Is that right? Yes?